Great people of tomorrow. Every perfume starts with one ingredient. But it's the last one that makes it come to life. You have witnessed the birth of a new elixir and have been part of a great adventure. You came here to find eternal bliss. But Mother Nature has given us much more.
Still introductory phases of doing the little bits and pieces that we can with the resources that we have at the moment. And all of the people were really just jumping to offer to help free of charge, and what can I do and how can I help, and here's this information. And it's amazing the response that people have eagerly wanted to help and give in order to make the holographic beds happen, which I can see why. You know, they solve a lot of problems in a world where we have a broken view of healthcare, and we just need to get away from highly expensive invasive procedures and drugs that don't really work. And there's just simpler, more cost-effective things that have higher effectiveness, and we just need to transition at some point.
Take a look around you, even in your own pocket. We are surrounded by technologies that were considered science fiction only a few years ago. 7 years ago, we have created a team to see if we can explore the world of medical holography and take it into reality. At the time, this was something considered totally science fiction. In fact, when we talked to experts at the time, the general response was, it can't be done, and followed by very knowledgeable explanations and scientific explanations. Since then, we've proven not only that it can be done, but that it can also provide significant value to physicians and can potentially improve healthcare.
So thank you for the time. So my name is Shaul. I'm the co-founder of RealView Imaging. And RealView Imaging is all about digital holograms. So we've been working on digital holograms for the past almost decade. And when I say holograms, it's real holograms, meaning interference-based holograms. So we interfere light in free space. So before RealView Imaging, I've been working on augmented reality. This is one of the projects I've been working in for also almost a decade in the field of helmet-mounted displays for aviation.
Usually I would be standing on this stage over here conducting the college orchestra because I'm a music professor. But tonight I'm going to talk about my moonlight activities in the field of science and how they led to a cancer research lab and an important breakthrough. Over the past 8 years, I've had the great pleasure of working with some brilliant and dedicated scientists. They were very open-minded, and we had a common dream that in the future, children would not have to suffer from cancer or from the terrible side effects of toxic drugs or radiation, because we believed there just had to be a better way. There had to be a better way, and we think we may have found it. A scientist said, you're killing more cancer cells than as if you had used radiation. That same scientist went on, if you had spent millions of dollars developing a new drug that killed this many cancer cells, it would be a home run. This was an astonishing thing to hear, especially for a music professor who had just completed his first experiments in a cancer lab. But we didn't use any radiation. We didn't use any drugs. So what did we do?
My name's Taylor Morris, and I grew up right here in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Went to Cedar Falls High School. And after high school, I joined the Navy and did a job called Explosive Ordnance Disposal, or EOD. And EOD's responsibilities are to respond to incidents involving chemical, biological, radioactive, nuclear, and explosive weapons and devices. In addition, the Navy's responsibilities involve also underwater ordnance. And so we go to dive school and we get trained on scuba, as well as this rebreather rig that's shown here. In addition to that, we go to jump school to ensure that we can get ourselves and our gear any place at any time. One central theme from the very beginning of training that they drove into us was to constantly improve your situation. And this started out with things as simple as making a space a better place, or making it better when you left than it was when you got it. So that applied to any break room, any barracks room we stayed in, any common area that we were in. The idea being just to make an improvement from how you got it, so you turn it over to the next guy better than when you got it. Pretty simple.
Let's say I get my arm blown off right at my elbow, which I have had a number of times, more than I can count, right? Just more times than I can count. More times than I can count, waking up, going, oh, which part of me got blown off this time, right? It's not too much fun, but you don't feel it most of the time either. So I can't really say that most often the times that I had body parts blown off that I suffered a lot, because most of the time I didn't hardly feel it at all. Or, you get blown apart, you lose consciousness. Pain stops, when you lose consciousness. But let us just say I get my arm blown off, cut off, right here at the elbow. Now, if I project a holographic image of this arm past this elbow, connecting up to this elbow, normally what happens, the reason your cells stop growing is they hit air, they hit oxygen, they go, no more arm, we got to stop right here, arm's gone, it's not there. Well, this fools the cells into thinking that the arm is still there. So they're just going to keep going, all the way down to the fingertips. Now, we had a holographic regenerating medbed that could do that in a matter of hours. About 4 hours. Wow. Right? Arm blown off at 10 a.m., you're cleared to go back to duty by dinner time. Okay? Yeah, no days off. No days off. You gotta get a few limbs blown off, and then you ask that, when you come to, one of the first things I would always remember to ask is how long am I going to be here for? When I get blown off, and they'll just be like, you'll be out of here by this afternoon. Well, tomorrow afternoon. Oh, it's going to be a while. You're going to be here for 4 or 5 days. Woo, time off.
Going back in time, the first X-ray images were generated back in 1895. This is actually the first time that the inner parts of the body were imaged, were seen without having to cut it open. This very famous image was created by Professor William Röntgen, an image of his wife with a finger, totally science fiction. If you move forward in time, then 20, 30 years ago, seeing 3D images was considered, in medical imaging, was considered also science fiction. This is an example of a 3D dynamic, real-time 3D image of a mitral valve, one of the valves in the heart, generated by 3D ultrasound. And we were seeing physicians looking at this image, and we were thinking, why are physicians seeing a 3D spatial image confined inside a 2D screen? And this sparked our imagination and took us on this very fascinating journey into the world of medical holography.
So maybe some of you saw this Grey's Anatomy series. So, so of course, these guys are taking and doing post-processing. I think they did beautiful job for us. So they are taking and doing post-processing. The question is how far this is from reality. And I would like to say that we don't have such a good actors in real view imaging, but we have real hearts. This is a real patient heart. It's CT-based. It's hovering in free space. It occupies a real volume, and it is made of 20 focal planes. When you are, first of all, the visualization is very hard to let you understand or get a feeling on the visualization. Since I'm showing you hologram on a 2D screen, it's like showing color on black and white. But you can see that the physician can now go, this is, I think, 1-to-1 scale of the human heart. He can go and touch the specific elements that he doesn't want to see. It is pre-segmented. And then this is the left atrium. He is able to touch the left atrium. Now he can cut it because he wants to ablate inside. This is a rehearsal. This is not real time, meaning the images are real time, but the patient is not here. Now everything is spatially registered in front of the physician, and he can treat this element, object, left atrium in this example, like any other object in life. And here, for example, he will try to make ablation points in a specific area. This is a very common procedure, unfortunately.
I have here two identical tuning forks, both tuned to the note A, the note an orchestra tunes to. These forks are both made to vibrate 440 times per second. We say their frequency is 440 hertz. If I tap this fork, putting little pulses of energy into it, the second fork will also vibrate in sympathy. And if I silence this fork, we just may hear the other singing its tone. We say that I'm inducing a sympathetic resonant vibration in the second fork. It only works because both forks are tuned to the exact same frequency. Now, many of us have seen this very charming young man on the internet who shatters crystal glasses with his powerful voice. But if you watch him carefully, you'll see that first he taps the glass with his finger and listens. The glass sings its natural resonant pitch. Then he takes a deep breath and sings a loud, long note. He induces a resonant vibration in the crystal glass. The vibration grows larger and larger and larger until the glass is shattered. On the other end of the scale, we have a giant bridge made out of concrete and steel, a suspension bridge, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. Cars and trucks and buses are going over it every day. And unfortunately, where they built this bridge, there was a steady wind blowing across it. And one day, this wind induces a small vibration in the bridge, hardly noticeable. But the frequency of the vibration matches the resonant frequency of some part of the bridge. And the vibration gets larger and larger and larger until the bridge collapses into the river below.
The USA's Tacoma Narrows. From the day it was finished in 1940, it bounced around. Dubbed Galloping Gertie, it became a tourist attraction. Real trouble started the day it began to twist. The wind wasn't particularly strong, but it stayed steady. Each time it twisted, it turned a little more. Finally, it twisted itself apart and became every bridge builder's nightmare.
A destructive, resonant frequency. So on one end of the scale, we have a giant concrete and steel bridge destroyed by resonance. And on the other, we have a small crystal glass shattered. So maybe we could shatter something even smaller, something really small, something you would need a microscope to see. Maybe we could shatter a living microorganism. But to do that, you'd need some sort of theory to serve as a basis. And we find that basis in a wonderful book called The Rainbow and the Worm, The Physics of Organisms, by a scientist, Mei-Wan Ho.
We were out to rescue a team of Marines that were still taking fire, and when we were over the area to pick them up, the enemy started firing up at our helicopter. I tried for about 3.5 years to save the leg, 20 surgeries, and when the last one didn't work out, I made the decision to have the leg amputated above the knee, and haven't looked back since. I'm able to run, maybe not as pretty as I was before, but I'm able to at least get the job done running-wise, and like I said, other tasks, it's just finding a new way to get it done.
Especially what I'm really excited about is the medical regenerating med beds, which can regrow limbs and restore damaged organs, etc. The holographic regenerating medical bed technology is probably one of the most amazing technologies I've ever seen or heard of. And certainly for me to be standing here with body parts that have been ripped apart and blown off so many times is miraculous, a miracle of science in and of itself, I would have to say. And my favorite part about this technology is that we now understand that we have the basic components on planet Earth in the civilian world to start putting this technology together. So essentially the two main components of this technology are a computer that has the ability to have a genetic code entered into it and be able to create a virtual model of that person based on that genetic code. The other component that you need, main component, is a holographic projector, essentially the lensing of that projects a holograph, a three-dimensional holographic light image. You need that. Now there are some other components to the technology that we used on Mars that way more advanced than the first kind of things that we're going to be able to build here for sure. Technology, the medical regeneration bed technology, which I've talked quite a bit about. The answer to whether this technology is recreatable is yes. The answer further is it will take some time to refine the components of the technology to the resolution that we need to be able to do that.
Now, when you think about 3D, you typically think about goofy glasses that you put on in a theater, and then you have an illusion of an image that is floating in front of you. But if you want to have a real image and not an illusion, then you need to use the technology called holography. Now, holography is a magical thing. It was invented back in the 60s by Dr. Denis Gabor, which also received a Nobel Prize for this invention back in 1971. The problem is that all the holograms that were created since the 60s are static holograms, like viewing a 3D picture. I remember myself 7 years ago in a science museum in Tel Aviv, looking at a hologram of a person looking at me, floating in the air, quite amazed by the fact that I can see it just in front of me, and trying to think, what would be the impact if this person would come to life, if we could do this dynamic and digital? So there are great challenges in creating a video of a hologram, and this is the challenges that we've overcome over the past few years. And these challenges range from very heavy computation all the way to creating a high-quality image that can be useful for physicians.
I will show you a little clip of some of the medical imagings that we've been working on for the past years. fetal imaging is, of course, very interesting. This is one of the places that we're looking. So imagine the physician can receive the information just like ultrasound from the cardiology, from the heart, and then you can cut the image, of course not cut the fetus, but cut the image and say inside. This is a real person's aorta and a stent with a valve before implantation. This is a simulation mode.
Software that's already exists and develop that to a higher resolution. We have to take holographic technology that already exists and develop that to a higher resolution, and then make sure that we have a sufficient power source. And I've been talking to people about, different energy generation power source issues. And, once we combine those three things engineering wise into a harmonious model, like I said, and we get some ability to generate very, very tiny, high resolution holograms, then we'll, grow a leg back on a frog or a rat and go, ta-da! And that's a paper, that's a scientific paper. And then, we continue further down the road of that. So it's a process.
I deployed to Afghanistan in the winter of 2012. Very, very remote forward operating base, way out in the mountains. I mean, there's 2 feet of snow on the ground when we got there. It was very cold. We were living in tents. And it was so remote that if you needed your truck towed, you couldn't just call in a tow truck. You had to call in a helicopter to come tow it away for you. In addition, the roads were so bad to get there that the military wasn't even authorized to drive on them because of all the roadside bombs and improvised explosive devices that were buried along the route. So all of our resupply had to come in by air. Every couple of weeks or every week, a big airplane would fly over, open up the back door, and dump out all of our consumable resupply items. So that was all of our food and water and ammo and fuel and all the important stuff. So not exactly your retirement destination. And we could definitely exercise this central theme of improving our situation. And we did. Anytime we weren't doing something that was mission focused, we were calling up the main base to get a delivery of plywood and 2x4s so we could build hard structures and get out of the tents. Or we were digging a well so we could reduce our dependency on bottled water.
And that book makes a very strong case that living organisms and cells are liquid crystals, or in the least, they have many properties of liquid crystals. Now, we're all familiar with liquid crystals because they are in our laptop computer screens. LCD display, liquid crystal display. And we can change the qualities of the liquid crystals in our computer screen by sending special electronic signals to it. We can change the color and the shape on the screen with these signals. So maybe we could change a biological living liquid crystal with a special electronic signal. But in order to do that, we would need some kind of device. So we search the US patent database, and we find this invention by a physician, Dr. James Baer of Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's called a resonant frequency therapy device, and its purpose is to induce a resonant vibration in a living organism or cell. And there are two really important things about this device. The first is that it uses a very special kind of antenna. They take a hollow glass sphere, they evacuate the air, they put in some helium gas, and when we send in our electronic signals, the helium gas lights up like a fluorescent light. An electrified gas is called a plasma. So this is called a plasma antenna, and it has many special properties uniquely suited for this kind of work. The second important aspect about Dr. Baer's invention is that the output always pulses. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. This is very important because when you're doing research on the effects of electromagnetic waves on living organisms and cells, if the signal is constantly on, you are in danger of inducing heat in those cells. And heat causes indiscriminate destruction. And we don't want that. We want targeted destruction. So we don't have to worry about heat.
After my 17 years in the MDF, on the ground, in the red sand, killing, dying, getting blown up, getting rebuilt again, we have these really cool medically, these holographic regenerating medical beds. So cool. Right? They make every other medical technology you have ever heard of dark ages obsolete. Dark ages obsolete.
Well, when I was in the MDF, which is the Mars Defense Force, and spent a number of years there getting my arms and legs and various body parts blown apart on a pretty regular basis, it certainly would have been a short career if they didn't have the technology to patch us back up in an amazingly incredible way. And so the ability at that level, and we're not talking about like what we could introduce to the general public to be the same evolved and developed technologies that we were using, but we're definitely talking about the same technology that can do the same thing, just not as fast, not as efficiently. So when I say that we were able to restore arms and legs within, depending on the amount of damage, sort of cubic centimeters of damage, you're talking about hours or days at the most. With the technology that we're going to be introducing, it's going to take longer to restore tissue. They're going to have to do sessions with people where they're going to have to be in the machine or act part of the machine is over them for a certain number of hours, if every day or daily or several times a day over a period of weeks to really restore like an arm that's been removed or a leg that's been blown out. But we'll still be able to do it. So the fact that it will take much longer and be a little more tedious of a process as we get out the gate than the advanced technology that we use, it's just the difference between technology that's been developed for decades versus technology that in the civilian world we're essentially having to develop from the ground up.
The first thing I asked my brother-in-law when I came to was my soldiers, how are my soldiers? He told me about what happened to the other two guys. And then I said, am I paralyzed? And he said, no. And I said, no, Josh, I can take it. You don't have to lie to me. I can't feel my fingers and toes. Am I paralyzed? And he said, you're not paralyzed, but you don't have them anymore. I want my daughter to never see me fail. She'll see me fall down, she'll see me get discouraged, but she'll never see me give up.
and this is things that I know from what we know about the med beds that the military gets from the contractors that they contract for, and the ones that they build themselves, that we're not allowed to have one, but I'm allowed to take what I know and make one. That's the loophole, right? The materials cost, what goes into it, you're talking about an end product that is less than a quarter of the cost of an MRI machine. Something that you're going to be able to create for a fraction of the cost of an MRI machine, and that can fix anything over a period of time.
The reason we have to do that is because of this wall of classifications, Espionage Act, et cetera, which means that no one can hand me a blueprint, no one can hand me a schematic, no one can hand me a prototype, no one can hand me a component. But if I understand how those things work, there are people who I can get advice from asking specific questions. They can't necessarily, again, hand the information to me, but if I understand the information and the component well enough to ask the right questions, I will always be able to get a correct answer, so that when I say that, we have enough information to develop this, we do. But it is also in puzzle pieces that we have to put together, because this wall of classification is designed to do just exactly what it's doing, which is prevent the quick, easy, fast access of this technology into the civilian world. So we accept that. We accept that obstacle. We accept that it's not going to happen fast. We accept that it's not going to be quick. We accept that it's not going to be easy. And we accept that it's not going to be a full component modeled device that we can just use, that we're going to have to put the pieces together. But I can assure you, I understand the components very well.
Once you manage to overcome these limitations, then you can, this is an illustration of what we could do. We could now have the image floating in front of the physician, so he can really understand the organ in front of him and really see it floating in the air very clearly. And we could do that with any imaging modality based on CT or 3D ultrasound or MRI. Now, this is a really cool technology. I hope you would agree, but many of you might be asking yourself, why do I need it? Why would the physician want to use a hologram in his procedures? So there are two great things about a hologram. One is the fact that it's the most intuitive visualization there is. So it's very natural to see a hologram. You see it floating in front of you. You can move your head in front of you. It's really there, just like I'm holding my hand here in front of me. But we didn't just want to have the holograms, to see the holograms. We also wanted for these holograms to be interactive.
This is mapping of the left atrium for electrophysiology. So as the mapping goes, the left atrium structure is being built, and what you see on it are the electricity on the left atrium. This is information that we received from a third party. We are creating the hologram, not the data.
About halfway through the deployment, I stepped on an IED, an explosive that was buried in the ground, a homemade device, and got hurt pretty bad. Lost parts of all 4 limbs. They medevaced me to a hospital there in Kandahar, Afghanistan. It was called Kandahar Airfield. Did my first initial round of surgeries there and cleanouts. Then I flew to Germany a day later and got more surgeries done and more cleanouts. And then a day after that, they flew me to the United States, to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. And that's where I would do my recovery for the next couple of years. I went from being one of the most independent people out there to 100% dependent on another person. And that really took a toll. It was hard to do. I mean, imagine how often you use your arms and legs. It's how you interact with the entire world. And that was no longer an option for me.
So if you project that holographic arm over, let's say, a stumpy arm that's been blown off, what normally when your cells reach air and they go, oh, we can't go anymore, now they're fooled by this holographic arm and they go, oh, let's keep growing. And that's how you can regrow a limb, is by essentially projecting that holographic arm, which kind of acts as a splint, if you will, or for the cells to just keep growing. And they go, oh yeah, let's just keep going, and there's more arm until you grow back the whole arm. It also has the ability, when you have damaged cells, they want, this is a very interesting concept, but they want to conform to that orderly pattern. So they actually will want to regenerate and restore themselves based on that harmonic, healthy pattern from the damage pattern. And that's how you have this ability to do completely non-invasive, no drugs, no surgery, reconstruction of organs, limbs, etc.
So the second great thing about a hologram is that once you have a hologram in a precise location, you can now manipulate the hologram in the air. You can move the hologram in front of you. You can go in with a tool and measure something. And measurement is something very common in medicine. So now you don't have to do it on 2D. You can do it on the real 3D object much more accurately. You can take an actual device, like a stent or a valve, put it inside the image and see if it fits this specific patient. And you can also crop the hologram to a specific 2D plane and extract this 2D plane from the hologram so you know exactly where you are or where this 2D plane is coming from as a physician.
These are the pulmonary veins coming from 3D rotation angiography. This is called pseudo real-time. It is being done intra-procedurally, but then you have, after 4 seconds, you have only one volume. This is real-time ultrasound. It's very hard to grasp it on a 2D screen, but this is real-time. The patient is lying here, and his heart is there. And when the catheter is introduced to the same area, you see it very clearly. Here, the physician is making a measurement of the hole. This is a patient with a hole in the heart, in the septum, before closure. Today, we are closing the hole in the heart, in the septum, minimally invasive with a catheter.
I knew I wasn't done doing this job. I love doing it, so if I'm able to do it still and given the opportunity, then I want to continue. It's tough mentally and physically. The instructors here, they really take the students to not where they think they can go mentally. It's where the instructors know they're able to go mentally and see if the student will actually push through it or give up.
Let's go! Right now! Just sit down for a second.
There's definitely some hoops to go through, but we feel very confident that we have the allies politically and industrial that we need to make it happen. Certainly we have people who don't want it to happen, but we think we have the allies to make it happen, so we're not worried.
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
We can take very complicated things like the human body and take them apart, look at them in their individual pieces, and then put them back together just like at will. We can then take these digital pieces of information and animate them and look at how they change in time, for example. So you can imagine for people like surgeons, this will dramatically change and enhance their ability to both learn a procedure, but then also perform that procedure in an operating room. Nurses and other support staff can learn how to do procedures before ever seeing a real person. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here's our anatomical model.
That is crazy.
You can see the heart inside.
That's cool.
But he's just made out of light.
That's definitely a man, all right.
Yes.
Yeah. So Mark, do you have something that will show more internal organs? Because right now he's kind of hollowed out.
Right. We can choose what to display. Today we've just got a few things here, but let's take for example, a closer look at the heart.
Oh, wow.
So again, with just a few clicks, we can come in and look. This simulated patient does have a plaque in their artery, but it's right up here.
Oh, the yellow thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's a blockage. You better
Exactly.
get him some statins.
Just a few clicks of our fingers, we can see all this detail. We can look and see inside the heart. And this would take hours in a cadaver lab.
And how do you think this is going to change medicine, Toby?
I think we're seeing it right now in education, and I think it's going to move on to the clinical applications. It's going to teach patients in the future about their problems. It's going to be an incredibly expanding way to understand what's going on in the human body.
The initial idea really with it was to possibly change a few aspects of education that could be improved. We then started to create this bigger idea of if it can be implemented into medical education, maybe it can be implemented into all realms of education. We started to think maybe we could substitute PowerPoint presentations and normal didactic lectures with something maybe more stimulating, something that could have a high impact on learning and teaching.
My name is Dr. Kapil Sugand, and Pedro and I, we worked at St. George's as junior doctors in A&E. And after we finished our 2 years of working, we had to decide what to do next. Pedro is a very innovative, imaginative person who learns very well through visual medium. He had an idea. He said, Kapil, what if we can use 3D, virtual reality, holography, augmented reality, dynamic animations, all these buzzwords I never heard of before. We found a gap, and we thought, would it be possible if we had the time, the money, the manpower to be the first people in the world to introduce it into medical education, and from there expand into other university academic disciplines, which has not been done before. We have the equipment and the technology to convert any 3D animation into a holographic image so that it actually appears closer to you than it really is. And we have 2 days of back-to-back lectures covering anything between medicine and surgery. Medicine is an easy subject, but it is difficult to communicate the abstract physiological concepts. When disease comes into the body, what happens? And that's why I think a lot of people think medicine is difficult. So what we are trying to do for the first time is, rather than using static images on a 2D screen with PowerPoint, our aim is to revolutionize and change the face of medical education within the 21st century, because we have access to that technology now.
He lost both legs below the knee, protecting our country from the front lines in Afghanistan. But that's not stopping him from protecting us here at home.
No, it's not. Matthias Ferreira just graduated the Suffolk County Police Academy in New York, becoming the country's first full-time double amputee cop.
Joining us now with his heroic story, newly minted police officer Matthias Ferreira. Nice to see you this morning. And congratulations. And congratulations, and thank you for your service to our country. It's an unbelievable story. Take me back to 2011 when this all happened.
So I was a machine gunner attached to 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, 2nd Marine Division out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And we were doing OEF, which is Operation Enduring Freedom. We were deployed to Helmand Province and basically trying to win the hearts and mind of the people, and basically there to help out in eliminating the threat of Taliban forces. On a night of January 21st, 2011, we were doing a night op, which is basically going inside of the compound and making sure that there were no combatants there or any type of IED-making materials. Upon going inside of the compound, everything was cleared. We were setting up to basically stay there overnight and begin the missions the next day. I was on a rooftop with the rest of my machine gunners, and we were just setting up the gear, and I said that I'd be back, that I was going to go get the rest of the stuff. And when I jumped off the roof, I landed on a 30-pound bomb. Upon the bomb going off, both my legs were amputated below the knees, and I had a broken pelvis and shattered femur. And thank God, you know, my doc, Tommy Case, he was there, my CO was there, everybody was very supportive, very professional. Everybody was able to stop the bleeding until the medevac got there, and once the medevac got there, I was able to, you know, basically start responding.
And you were taken to Germany. How long was your recovery process?
So the recovery process, I would say, was about a year time lapse from beginning to end. From Germany to Walter Reed Army Medical Center, you know, I don't remember too much from there. It was just remembering waking up in Washington, D.C. ATC and basically start recovering from the wounds and walking.
At 3 months, it took you to start walking, which is amazing.
When you first mentally realized what you had lost, and you had lost both of your legs, what was going through your mind at the time, and what kept pushing you to want to keep fighting, to want to keep giving back in that moment?
Well, at the time, it was my family that kept me going, forward. Now I'm married with a 2-year-old daughter, and really I just want to continue to live my life, to live for them. I know that I would want my daughter to grow up being strong-willed and not letting anything stop her. But my fellow classmates in the police academy and my staff and everybody there was just so supportive that it's really hard to just fail. It's hard to not continue to go on.
I've had them used on me so many times that, I have all my digits where they weren't many, many times over.
Well, it looks good. The arms look, like they function.
Yeah. They're not too bad at the moment.
Real and,
Yeah.
So it does a good job. I mean, it really is complete. It looks very, very, thorough. Like it.
Yeah. If it only healed the psychological and emotional trauma of having your body blown apart and ripped apart, several thousand times, which it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It doesn't at all. So that's my own thing that I have to deal with. Right. But that's okay because I can at least have the positive outlook of, I got all my fingers, my toes, and everything. So.
Right. I mean, look at these guys that come back from these wars and they're sadly, they're walking around. Some aren't even walking. I mean, but they're in Walter Reed, but they're trying to rehabilitate with their prosthetics and all that stuff. And that's, and that's tough. That's really tough too. So it's really a shame to deny them this technology. I mean, I'm sure Winston has seen it too, but.
Well, I think we could go a step further, and I think it's criminal, to be honest with you. I think denying them the access to technology, which is commensurate with their dedication of life of service, that, there's a justification there, both civil, legal, and moral, that it's a criminal violation actually to deny them the level of care which could completely change the quality of their lives and make the difference between functional and just not functional at all. And even people who become functional with the handicaps of losing arms and legs, it's never going to be the same, as how you could function with them. So we don't think that that's, we go beyond saying that it's not fair, not right, or just, it's criminal. It's a criminal violation of what we as a society, of what our social contract with soldiers, what that contract is, and what we owe to put them back together when they're willing to go out there and get themselves blown up and ripped apart for us. So the social contract that we have with them is such that we owe them the best use of whatever technology that we have, the highest level of technology that we have, and we're not using it on them, we're not giving it to them. And so I think that's a criminal violation. I will even go so far to say we think that's a criminal violation.
Rihanna might be the reason you go see Battleship, but Greg Gatson will be the one you're talking about when the credits roll.
Let's see if we can't buy the world another day.
Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gatson, an actual decorated war vet, knows all too well the struggles of his character in the film.
I'm a field artillery officer, was a battalion commander in Iraq, and I lost my legs to an IED. My character, Mick Canales, is certainly someone I could identify with. I could obviously bring my personal experiences of recovering from these injuries.
Keep your feet together.
My feet can't get any closer.
Stand up tall.
All right, I had enough of this. A lot of the thoughts, a lot of emotions were still fresh and native to my experience.
But Gatson didn't let his disability slow him down.
It's been very physical, much more physical than I expected.
We pushed his limits. I mean, the fight scene was extremely physical.
I did not think I was going to end up doing as much as I did, and the stunt guys came up with some incredible ideas, strapped me into a camera dolly and moved me back and forth, and when I would punch, it, twisted my body naturally while I was strapped to the chair.
And he said, I've not thrown punches like this since I lost my legs. That was a cool moment.
Check out more cool moments from Gatson when Battleship hits theaters Friday, May 18th.
I got this.
each other.
Bata tutu muni muni, bata tutu